Feels like all I've been seeing people talk about recently is the gacha of Arknights Enfield, and there's been a lot of misinformation and agenda posting going around. So today I wanted to bring you guys a sliver of hope the day before release, so that way you guys can maybe feel better about being free to play on this game. Now, I've made a lot of videos talking about whether or not you should be free to play in gacha games, and the answer is basically almost always a resounding yes, because gacha is kind of a predatory monetary system. Actually, I think kind of is an understatement. It's incredibly predatory, but I'll keep it real. Gacha games can still be a ton of fun regardless of the predatory monetization practices, especially if you're someone who's strong-willed enough to stay away from the predatory systems and enjoy the experience to the fullest without spending too much. Unlike my other Is This Game Free-to-Play Friendly videos, today I'm going to be going over more so of what you can expect with the launch and whether or not it holds up to what other gacha games before it have delivered. So with all that being said, my name is Braxophone and I have some exciting news to share with you guys. Let's talk about whether or not Arknights Enfield is free-to-play friendly. Now, if you're new to the Arknights Enfield gacha debate, basically it boils down to some players feel like this system is strictly worse than every other gacha system before it, especially competing titles like Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, and Wuthering Waves. The main reason is that you can guarantee a character at 120. However, if you build any pity towards that character and you don't happen to get them, by the time the banner switches to the next character, your entire pity for that specific character is gone. Now, there's some nuance to this because the amount of pulls that you do towards a 6-star remain, it's just that you don't have the guarantee. So for example, if I decided to pull, let's say I did 70 pulls and I didn't get a 6-star. Well, on Levitane's banner, I would be 50 pulls away from guaranteeing Levitane. However, in the case of the banner switching, I would then be at 0 pulls for the following character, but I would be 10 pulls away from a 6-star 50-50 pity. This essentially means that you could get multiple 6-stars before you hit your guarantee if you play your cards, well, wrong. And so the solution to this that players are saying is to just not pull until you have 120 pulls saved up, which begs the question, how fast can free-to-play players actually get 120 pulls? Well, luckily there is this post over on NGA. Now, I have used a translate feature and I'm not sure how accurate it is, but essentially the TLDR is this is a CN beta player who took the time to organize every single poll available in the game. And they say that their statistics are incomplete, which means that there could potentially be more. Their conclusion is that 1.0 has 393 total polls, with 152 polls for the standard banner and 241 polls for the limited banner. This equates to 2 separate rate-up characters being completely 100% guaranteed. Now, I will have this post linked in the description of the video, but essentially you can go check here. They explain sort of what they did and what they expect to happen. They also mentioned that in here they didn't count any extra or surprise rewards, but they expect that we'll get something in the mail from Hypergriff, which I think is a fairly reasonable expectation because that usually happens around the launch of games. And in the end, they predict over 400 polls total, with 250 of them being limited polls. Now, the main concern of free-to-play players was whether or not they would actually be able to get the limited characters that they were looking forward to, because 120 polls is a lot of polls. The current narrative is that you won't have enough time to get the amount of polls that you need for each character. But I'm here to tell you today that that is actually provably incorrect. Now, let's say you're a super casual gamer. There is the possibility that you actually won't do all of the content necessary to get up to your 120 polls that you would need for Surtur's banner if you're trying to pull for her. That is completely plausible. However, for any player that dedicates the time and effort to play the game and make an attempt to farm up all of the currency that they can, they will be able to guarantee getting Surtur on her first banner here, because this post actually shows that there are actually over 240 polls, which is 2 complete 120 guarantees. Now, I need you guys to bear with me a little bit because I ended up just trying to copy this over and translate the chart. This kind of shows where a lot of the polls come from, whether they're Oro Barrel, Originium, and Permits, and all of them are sort of organized to end up at these totals. Now, the thing that I feel like a lot of players aren't even considering is the fact that many of them will actually get the rate-up character before 120 polls. You might get the rate-up character at 80 polls in on your first 50-50, or you might even pull them early. And there are even bonuses when you do actually do polls, where if you do your 30th poll, you get another 10 shots at raw odds to get the character, or if you're on your 60th poll, you actually get a bonus 10 towards the next banner as well. So maybe if you want to pull 2 characters in a row, doing 60 towards the first one is going to help you pull the next one. For players who want to maximize the amount of pulls that they get in a basketball fashion, you can just pull 30 times on every banner, but I think that would be absolutely insane. Same with 60. If you wanted, you could even go up to 240 with your free-to-play pulls this patch and get one extra copy of Levitain, but after that, every single guarantee for Levitain would be 240, where it would give you a token. So for whales, I guess it's not that good, but that's also assuming you lose literally every 50-50. But overall, the reason that I brought up this video and that I wanted to talk about this is because one thing that bothers me a lot in the community is when there's tons of misinformation going around and it feels like players aren't even bothering to try and get the facts straight. I don't need to run defense for Arknights Enfield. The game stands on its own, but holy hell, you guys, if I, of all people, can find this info online, then you guys definitely can too. It's not that hard. At least for those people who want to make arguments about it. You know, if you're just here because you're curious about whether or not the game's free-to-play friendly, then I'm here to answer that question for you. But first, we have to talk about the weapon banner as well, because that's another point of contention. Arknights Enfield's weapon banner is actually far more free-to-play friendly than people think. So the way that weapon pulls work in Arknights Enfield is that you get a currency based on the amount of pulls you do for characters. A 6-star operator will give you 2,000 tickets towards the arsenal supply, a 5-star will grant you 200, and a 4-star will grant you 20. By doing pulls in the game, you can get currency towards the weapon banner, which you can then spend to get a 6-star weapon for your favorite operator. Now, part of the reason that some people are upset about this is because they feel that they won't be able to get the weapons that they want without pulling for characters, and they don't want to pull characters until they get 120 pulls. But something that for some reason every single person fails to mention is that standard banner pulls and beginner banner pulls also give you currency towards this. Like, let's just throw out the whole idea in version 1.0 that we get 241 limited pulls. Let's just get rid of that entirely. Even if that is the case, you are still going to be getting currency towards the weapon banner. What a lot of people don't realize is that every single pull you do is going to give you a 4-star, which is going to grant you 20, and every 10 pull you do is going to grant you at least a 5-star, which is 200 extra tickets. So even if you don't pull a 6-star, you're still getting close to 400 currency every single pull, not accounting for any bonus 5-stars or any 6-stars. Now, if I had to guess, you'd probably get a guaranteed character rate up weapon every 2 limited characters that you pull. So you may not be able to get every single character's limited weapon, but your odds are still pretty high. The rate for a 6-star weapon is 5 times higher than any competing game in Arknights Enfield. It is 4% for a 6-star. For reference, that is 1 in 25 pulls will net you a 6-star weapon. Now, you do have a 25-75 chance, so you only have a 25% chance to actually get the weapon. However, the amount of 6-star weapons that you're going to acquire over time is significantly higher than in some of the other competing games like Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, and Wuthering Waves. Arknights Enfield also has a 6-star weapon guarantee at 40 pulls, meaning it is highly likely and highly possible that by the time you get to the 80 pull guarantee of getting a 6-star weapon, you'll have at least pulled 2 other 6-star weapons in the meantime, meaning that for every guaranteed weapon you get at 80 pulls in, you're also getting 2 other 6-stars, meaning you also are getting gear for the rest of the units on your account. So not only do you not have to go out of your way to save up pulls for a weapon banner separately from the pulls that you would on characters, since you get that currency by pulling on characters anyways, but you also are going to be getting way more equipment for your characters and your account, and also way more duplicates of the weapons that you'll be getting from the banner. That's without even mentioning that the featured weapon is guaranteed at 80 pulls, which is the exact same pull guarantee as Wuwa, unless you count the soft pity, but let's be honest, your odds of pulling the 6-star before pity here are also pretty good. Now, I can't talk about the price per pull yet because we just don't know as of making this video, but if you're a free-to-play player, that doesn't matter to you anyways. What does actually matter for free-to-plays is how many pulls you're going to be getting and the rates of guaranteeing a character. But I can confidently say that it will take you less pulls per character to guarantee one, and odds are you're going to win some even earlier than that anyways. I can also confidently say that the weapon system in this game is a huge step up from other gachas that are competing, because even if you don't get the rate up, you are getting plenty of other equipment that is usable on your other operators. In Arknights Enfield, you will easily gear up your other characters with 6-star weapons, so long as you play your cards right. Now, I'm not saying that they don't make it confusing to prey on people who don't read it, okay? All gacha games are doing this, and I'm fairly certain Enfield specifically did it on purpose, which is why you should listen to the advice everyone is giving to free-to-play players and save 120 pulls, because Enfield is very fun. I think you will all enjoy it regardless of what characters you pull, but pulling the ones you like makes it even more fun, and should you have the capabilities to not pull the second that you have any sort of premium currency ever, you have the chance to get even more characters than you were able to in other games. Yes, it is only smart to pull if you have 120 limited pulls saved up, and yes, it is only smart to pull on the weapon if you have 80 pulls worth of the arsenal currency. But so long as you can adhere to that, you will have way more characters that you're interested in than get in other games. The only thing that could set this apart is if for some reason they just don't give a lot of currency after launch, which is always a possibility. But just from the amount of limited pulls alone we're getting in 1.0, in addition to the system that has a lower total pity to guarantee a character and a similar pity to guarantee a weapon, but also grants you many other weapons on the way, Arknights Enfield is a pretty dang free-to-play friendly game. And I didn't even talk about how many characters the Arknights IP already has that they can implement into Enfield as 4 stars. Enfield currently has a bunch of 6 stars and a bunch of 5 stars and 4 stars, but every single time you pull, you get a minimum of a 4-star character, and so long as they continue to implement 4 stars and 5 stars, I think free-to-play players are gonna be just fine. Anyways, thanks for watching, you guys. I hope this cleared up some of the misinformation that's going around, and I hope it gave you free-to-play players hope where there is a lot of despair online. Hey, if I'm wrong, you guys can make fun of me till the end of time, but I feel like we have some pretty definitive evidence here. Anyways, I'll catch you next time. Looking forward to Enfield.